So SASSA is responsible for distributing 8 grants and allowances to disadvantaged people who require financial assistance in South Africa. The grants are to assist South Africans in the best way possible. This as to also, make their plight easy. To further expand on the 8 different social grants, we are now joined by Paseka Letsatsi, who's the head of communications at the South African Social Security Agency. Mr. Letsatsi, thank you so much for your time this hour. So can we perhaps start by unpacking the types of grants that SASSA has?
We basically have various types of grants. We would have the old age grant, we'll have the war veterans grant, we'll have a disability grant, we'll have a child support grant. But obviously, what people would know, it's the child support grant, and people would also know the old age grant. But we may have to explain that there are other sorts of grants, and in this case, we'll talk about the care dependency grant, we'll talk about the top-up grants, and so forth. So these are some of the grants which the South African Social Security Agency, which is the SA agency of the social development, is offering.
Right, perhaps also just outline the accessibility of these grants.
The accessibility of these grants are open to South Africans who have all particular documents. You come to the South African Social Security Agency to make an application. But I also want to make mention of the fact that people sometimes confuse the availability or accessibility of the grants to the refugees to be available to illegal immigrants. And I think if you may allow me to make mention of the fact that you would have an illegal immigrant who would not have access to a grant. That particular illegal immigrant in actual fact must be arrested. You will have an asylum seeker. It's someone who has been persecuted in the country of origin who would come to South Africa and apply for a refugee status. You will have a refugee who has been granted the right to be in the country, who fled their country because they have been politically persecuted. And a refugee would have the same rights like me and you. The only right which a refugee would not have is the right to vote. And this is an international phenomenon where a refugee has got the right. So people sometimes think the South African Social Security Agency offer a grant to someone who is in this country illegally. It is not true. The fact is the grant is offered to a person who is in the country legally because they have been politically persecuted.
Thanks for giving clarity on that. So what challenges do you come across, especially when candidates apply for these grants?
No, we do have challenges. For an example, you'd have people who concentrate, who want to commit fraud, especially when it comes to the disability grant. The disability grant, you would have to basically go to the doctor. You must be certified that you are indeed disabled. You can't access the grant, or you can't be absorbed into the job market. But people would want to do all sorts of tricks to defraud the grant. But obviously, we also have people currently who, what we call the mashonistas. The mashonistas would give SASSA people money with ridiculous interest and take the SASSA card. And once you take the card of an individual, for an example, I want to say if you are given 1,000, they would say the interest is 500 rand. Obviously, when you go and get your money at the end of the month, you must pay the 1,000 that you owe and pay the 500 rand. But unfortunately, once you take the money from the mashonistas, you would not get out because you must take the money again. So these are some of the things which we face as a problem. But the most traumatic effect which we face as an organization is the fraud, which people try to make sure that they get this money at all costs. We know that in the old age, obviously it's about the age, but on the child support, on the disability grant, that's where we basically face a lot of crisis.
Fraud continues to really be a problem. Maybe bring us up to speed with some of the measures that have been put in place on your end to ensure that you curb fraud.
We have systems in place to make sure that we check the fraudulent activities. We have roadshows with our staff members to make sure that they understand the consequences which they will face, in particular if they commit fraud. Look, I mean, we can't, you can't be stealing money from the poor and then get arrested, sentenced to 10 years, and your family suffers, everybody around you suffers because you were trying to live a lavish lifestyle. We think it's important for people to live within their means, but what I can mention is the fact that the South African Social Security Agency staff members are very honest people. They've been approached by people who try to make sure that they avail all sorts of resources. There are people who were arrested in Mpumalanga some months ago. There are people that were arrested in KZN with boxes of the cards of SASSA grants. Their intention is to make sure that they collude with a SASSA staff member to get the pins to make sure that the card works, and then they go and withdraw the money. And what is painful to us is the fact that an old person will go and try to withdraw their money, and when they get to the bank, there is no money because fraudsters taking everything which they have.
And are there many cases where people try to apply for grants they do not perhaps qualify for?
No, there is. There are instances where people apply for grants. And look, there's a space which I would not want to get into, where there's desperation, right? And people try to make an application because they want to get grants. But there are instances where there are people who are being recruited to make an application. And in this instance, I want to emphasize on disability grants. People are being approached. You are told that please apply. If you get this money, you must give me 50% every month of the money. But what is good is that we have checks and balances. We have the systems in place. We have a very good fraud management unit, which keeps on picking up these issues. But obviously, the South African Social Security Agency cannot be immune from basically what might be happening in terms of fraud and so forth. But we have taken a decision as an organization, as management, to make sure that we zoom in on some of these issues to make sure that basically we check the fraud. Our IT system is such that it's able to pick them up. People get arrested, painful as it is. You find someone who is very much poor, who was recruited or lied to by people who come and recruit them so that they come and make an application for a social grant.
So, Mr. Letsatsi, for an average South African, either unemployed or ill and cannot care for themselves, what information do they need to know about SASSA grants?
Thank you very much for raising this question, because it's important for us to educate the public. People must be South Africans who must have a valid ID. Please, and I want to appeal to people, please do not come to SASSA office when you know that you have a fraudulent ID, because we will definitely catch you. The system is such that they are able to pick up these things. There is also a grant that we offer, which I know it's the most popular grant, the 350. But have an ID. Please, when you come to an office, you will be explained in terms of the means test. The means test is an instance where we basically check if you have an income or you don't have an income, and there's a threshold in terms of the properties which you have, or in terms of the money that you are getting every month. And once the staff member at the SASSA office go through that, then the SASSA staff members will then be able to give you an answer. But secondly, what is important is that we have availed the online application. And the intention of availing the online application is to make sure that those who've got access to gadgets do not necessarily come to SASSA office, but they can make an application from the place of their comfort. Myself and you, I think in the next 10 years, would or 20 years, if we go on pension, or if we retire, to make it easy, we would not want to queue, but would want to make sure life is very easy for South Africans. So, but what we want to appeal to the South Africans is, please do not fall victim of fraudsters. Refuse to be tempted when fraudsters come to you, because it's easy when a fraudster comes to you and say you get 2,000 rand, please do 1, 2, 3. But unfortunately, we arrested somebody somewhere in Joburg 2 years ago who was making applications, who was processing applications of grants from her office. And this person got arrested, an old person. I felt so bad and painful to see an old person being cuffed, thrown into a van of the South African Police Services. But obviously, law must take it, because if you defraud the organization, you will definitely be arrested.
All right, Paseka Letsatsi is the head of communications at the South African Social Security Agency. Thank you very much for your time indeed on the program.